in the election that we're facing up to. The belief that government knows best and government can order these things is just fundamentally antipathetic to the entrepreneurial spirit. And I hope we'll all remember that over the next few weeks. Thank you.
So we're running a little bit late, so I think we'll go straight to our next speaker. So can I please join me in thanking Dr. Bateman, Dan Mitchell and Simon Walker. Our next speaker, we're lucky to basically have him any day, but for those of you who are visiting Britain, bear this in mind. We are 3 weeks away from an election. Our next speaker is one of the key players in the campaign. He has got a world to save, let alone an election to win. So we're especially pleased he can be with us tonight. He's a former advisor to George Osborne, now business minister in his own right, and therefore a co-architect of the incredible economic success I was talking about earlier. So please welcome Matthew Hancock.
Well, Fraser, thank you for that unusually kind introduction. And you are right, there are 17 days to go to this election. 17 days. And the manifestos are out, and it is now clear that there is only one party in British politics that is unambiguously on the side of free enterprise. I don't know whether you saw that debate amongst the challengers last week. Enterprise was not mentioned once in an hour-and-a-half long debate. Labour, the Greens, the Nationalists, they appear united in the belief that jobs exist because the government said so, and that business at best is a source of revenue, and at worst, the enemy within. UKIP's one contribution to the debate seems to have been the suggestion of abolishing the Race Relations Act. So we're at a crucial moment for the future of British capitalism, and it is vital that we make and we win the argument for enterprise. And I pay tribute to the work of the IOD over many years in making this argument. For, as Fraser said, for each generation, we must make and remake that argument at home and abroad. And to do so, we can point both to the effectiveness of markets and also to the values that underpin them too. Because business, at root, is about something for something. It is about solving other people's problems. And it's an argument also that the CPS has long made, and CapX is a brilliant example of how we can use new media to bring these same arguments to a wider audience. And it reinforces this message that our goal is to support markets that work for everyone. And our task is to renew the bargain of any free enterprise society. As supporters of free markets, we must remake this argument that if you get the grades, if you work hard and get a good education, if we in government ensure that that education is there for everybody. If you save up, if you go the extra mile, then you can get that job, get the home and the pay packet to show for your efforts. And because of the success that a free market system brings, then also we can provide the public services, the dignity in retirement, and the support for the vulnerable that everybody wants to see, alongside the straightforward economic successes. Here in the UK, we've seen record numbers of jobs, rising investment, 750,000 more businesses, rising earnings, record startups, falling inequality and falling poverty. So who says that the free market isn't about values? And let's go through some of these in more detail. Let's take first the question of jobs. We have said that we will create a country of full employment, a job for everyone who wants one. And we already have a record number of people in work with more new jobs than the rest of the European Union combined. And this contrasts with the cutting fact that every Labour government in history has left office with unemployment higher than when they started. And let me say this about those jobs. 4 out of 5 are full-time. 3 out of 5 are outside London and the South East. 4 out of 5 are skilled jobs. And in the next Parliament, we want to see the highest employment rate of any major economy. And this can be achieved through further welfare reform so that work always pays, by supporting businesses to create 3 million apprenticeships, up on the 2 million delivered since 2010, and with the most competitive business taxes in the G20. And yes, all these things are about the economy, of course they are, but it's more. It's about the dignity, the self-respect, the health, the purpose that comes with work and the ability to provide for yourself and your family. This is what we stand for. And next, as well as the jobs, let's take entrepreneurship. We've got to continue to strengthen entrepreneurship in Britain and change the culture to support enterprise. In the last 5 years, we've seen record rates of business creation. We've seen more young people, more older people, more women, more people from ethnic minorities, all starting their own businesses. We need to help even more people to realise that dream. And we need to help those who've already got there to scale up their ambitions. So for instance, our Startup Loans Programme is one of the most exciting policies I think that we have introduced. Designed for people with a great idea, but without the assets to secure a bank loan. 26,000 of these loans have already been let, and we aim to treble that to 75,000 over the next 5 years. And for firms at the next stage, we'll roll out our Help to Grow scheme, using the government's balance sheet to secure much needed finance for companies with a high growth potential. We're putting more resources into UKTI to help companies break into new markets, and building a tax and regulatory environment that supports enterprise instead of holding it back. And linking these two things together, who are these people on the left who think that these jobs can't be created without successful enterprise? They don't like to talk about enterprise, but that's where the cake comes from, that they spend so much time worrying about how to share. Let me tell you, Mr. Nima, you can't care for people if you don't care for the businesses who create the jobs and the prosperity that people want to see. Now, in the last Parliament, we helped small business owners by cutting 10 billion off the cost of red tape. We're targeting a further 10 billion in the next 5 years. And regulatory reform will be at the heart of our plan to renegotiate a better settlement with the European Union. But these measures to release burdens are not matched by the other parties. And crucially, we need to make this argument. All of this is for a purpose, because a society that allows people and helps people to fulfill their dreams is a stronger society, richer in every sense than the one where enterprise and innovation are crushed. Then, we've got to increase ownership so that more have a personal stake in the strength of our economy. The saving revolution that we've undertaken these past few years allows people more freedom and control. We've announced that individual savers will have the chance to benefit from the next offering of Lloyds Bank shares. And of course, an expansion of the right to buy is at the heart of our manifesto. The right to buy. Yes, it is a housing policy, but it is much more than that. The right to buy is not just about giving more people the pride of belonging in a place that also belongs to you. As well as that aspiration, it's about empowerment too. And we must say this to those on the left who would seek to deny the British dream of home ownership to low-income families. Who are you to stop a low-paid person from owning their own home and realising that dream? So more jobs, more enterprise, more ownership are all crucial if we're going to win this argument. And supporters of free markets know this too, that markets are free when they operate in a strong framework of law and reasonable behaviour. For the purpose of the market is not the market itself, but it is the people who they serve. So we must strive to ensure that the system is fair, that people and firms get out according to what they put in, and that those who don't play by the rules don't get an advantage for that. It's a reciprocal arrangement. It's something for something. That is the deal, and that's what we offer. For instance, we will keep taxes low, but we expect those taxes to be paid. We believe in flexible labour markets, but we ban exclusivity in zero-hours contracts because workers need flexibility too. We'll deliver less regulation, but we expect suppliers to be paid on time. And we've strengthened the enforcement of the minimum wage because the purpose of growth is living standards, and I don't want to see responsible, law-abiding firms undercut by the unscrupulous. So this is what we stand for, a fair market that works for all, where our economic revival is spread to all parts of the country, where opportunity is spread to all, where we can help all our sons and daughters realise their God-given potential and live in a land of hope and fairness and fulfilment. And I passionately believe that we can win this argument, that Britain is well set, and that we have a clear plan to make this country one of the big winners of the 21st century, one of the most prosperous in the world. That is what we stand for. But it is why it is so vital that we win this argument and win this great battle in 17 days' time. And I call on you to do all that you can to help to do that, so that we can make these fine goals a reality. Thank you. Now, I think I'm expected and would be thrilled to take questions if there are any. Brilliant. Well, we've solved all the problems in the world in this meeting. Yes, lady at the back.
I'd like to question to Matt Hancock. That is, he was talking about the free market. It strikes me that conservative housing policy is very much the antithesis of a free market.
Surely in a free market, people pay themselves with money that they have earned for the property that they acquire. They don't get massive subsidies. I think it's up to something like £100,000. And many of us would think it was just a vote bribe and be virtually gifted property. That strikes me actually as a very left-wing policy, not a conservative policy, not a free market policy.
I presume, Mary, you're referring to right to buy.
Yes.
And I think that the policy of right to buy is about supporting home ownership and the asset ownership that underpins a free market, and making sure that more people, yes, have a stake in our economy, but also that more have the opportunity to fulfill that aspiration. And it, of course, in a housing market where there are council-owned properties, where there are housing association-owned properties, where there are privately rented properties, and where people own their own homes, there is always going to be a mixed economy. And our question on our side of politics is, who are we in it for? And I'm in it for the people who we can help to get onto the property ladder, who otherwise couldn't. And for people who are working hard, playing by the rules, and striving for a better life for themselves and their children. And that is a crucial part of a free market and making a free market work. And I think right to buy is a central element of that, as it was proved with council housing 30 years ago. So I think it will prove with housing association housing in modern times. There's another question just here.
I was watching the news just before coming out, and Nicola Sturgeon was announcing that she was going to be able to balance the budget over the next few years while spending more year on year on year. What's the simple argument we're going to make out to people to say we cannot continue to spend? It's not new to the home, the fact that we have to pay the debt off. It's simply, people believe it. People are mainstream. Oh yes, if she's going to do it, she's going to make it fair.
Well, this is, of course, a central free market argument, and it's a central argument to us on the centre right, and it's an argument that here in the UK we've been running for about 10 years. And the proposition that the UK needs to live within its means is one that is well supported. And there is no doubt that we could win the argument that Britain needs to pay her way in the world, and you can only do that by making sure that what comes into the exchequer balances what goes out. Now, there are all sorts of technical arguments around the point at which that happens, but ultimately the idea that you could run a deficit forever and that more borrowing, more debt interest payments is not one that the British people support, and we need to get that argument out there over the next 17 days. There was a question at the front.
Moving back on to the right to buy, I'm a chartered surveyor. When the previous right to buy was going on, I analysed who was coming to me, and I protected people from buying, and I refused to do surveys for them. I have met people who are poor, who are on low income, who end up owning properties where they cannot replace the roof, they cannot replace the boiler, they cannot redecorate the property, and they end up in rundown properties. We need to protect those who are poor from numbering themselves with properties which they cannot afford to maintain. In addition, what happens to the money that we're getting? The money that was going into the councils for these council houses wasn't ploughed back into new housing. We have a very, very big problem with too little new housing. I've met people who have lost their housing, who bought under right to buy. We had Kidbrooke, the Kidbrooke estate. People ended up getting very little money from the council, going to the bottom of the council housing list and being the last people moved out of that house because they were not suited to buying on right to buy. If you're going to provide right to buy, protect those who are the poorest from lumbering themselves with huge debts.
Well, I have to say that I think that ensuring that others, no matter what their background, have the opportunities that are available to many of us, including owning your own home, is absolutely at the heart of any party that supports aspiration. And for every one person who finds it difficult to maintain their home, there are many, many more who simply would not be able